I'm Robert LeBoyer, Senior Biotechnology Analyst at Noble Capital. Our next presenting company is Unicycive, a company developing a novel treatment for kidney disease with important advantages over some of the current drugs that are available in this marketplace. With us today is Dr. Shalabh Gupta. Please go ahead, Dr. Gupta.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go through the company presentation. I'll be making forward-looking statements. I'll refer you to them before making any investment decisions. Our company is focused on treatment of kidney diseases. We have two drugs. Our lead drug is in a late stage of development for treatment of hyperphosphatemia in patients who are suffering from chronic kidney disease. We are currently running a pivotal clinical trial, which we expect to report this quarter, the top-line data, and file our NDA right after that. It's a fairly late-stage program. It's a significantly de-risked program. We have a team that has launched this product, this category of the products before. We have a development team that has done multiple drugs, has taken multiple drugs through the FDA regulatory process. And on top of that, we have a favorable reimbursement environment in terms of what we expect with the current guidelines from CMS for reimbursement of this class of drug. We also have a second drug, which I'll briefly mention, which is in the clinical stage, currently going through phase 1 clinical trial for acute kidney injury. And recently, we received an orphan drug designation from the FDA. So with that, let me walk you through very high level, a quick summary of the disease burden and what is so unique about our drug and what is so unique about our program that you should care. Chronic kidney diseases are progressively worsening disease pathology. 1 in 7 adult in the United States suffers from chronic kidney disease. They divided from stage 1 through 5. At the end of a stage of chronic kidney disease, patients end up in going on dialysis, which many of us are familiar with. There are roughly 500,000 patients in the US who are on dialysis every year. Roughly 80% of those patients, that's roughly 400,000 patients who are on dialysis, need something to manage their phosphate. And that phosphate control is currently being managed by drugs that are given in the form of phosphate binder. And recently, there's a new drug that came into the market, which is an ion exchange inhibitor. It's a non-binder, but approved only in a second-line treatment indication. Even with the available treatment options, patients are not controlled. We still have a lot of patients who currently don't have their phosphate control, which I'll go through in a minute. Just quickly, what we expect to see in the near term, I mentioned the key highlight is going to be our pivotal trial readout, which we expect in the next few weeks. Shortly thereafter, we are filing an NDA. Based on what we know, once the FDA accepts our NDA, it's roughly 10 to 12 month cycle for approval. We also have an anticipated change in reimbursement environment, which is called TDAPA, which I can go through if the time permits in the later part of the presentation. And as I mentioned, the second drug, we expect to have the phase 1 completed and have a readout. And we also plan on meeting with the FDA to bring the drug into the US for our second drug. Currently, our second drug is undergoing phase 1 clinical trial in the United Kingdom. We have a lot of different catalysts coming up, and most important ones, the significant ones are coming up in very near term. We did a financing. Recently, we closed a $50 million placement. Prior to that, last year, we had closed a financing that allows us a tranche-based warrant exercises. So we have sufficient capital that we don't need to go to capital markets for quite some time. And we are able to not only finance the current operations, but also have sufficient capital to be able to launch the drug. 3 tranches of warrants are tied to the milestones, tranche A for FDA approval, tranche B upon getting to TDAPA designation, and tranche C is 4/4 of the sale of a drug that does not have any minimum threshold for the sales. So in other words, we launched the drug, assume for a second, we launched a drug mid-2025. Mid-2026, we are able to exercise or have an option to go to our investors for tranche C warrants. The details of the warrants are all in our regulatory filings and 10K. I'll refer you to them to get more specific details. Going into our lead program, what is so unique about it? Our drug is based on nanoparticle technology that allows the drug pill size to be quite significantly smaller while maintaining the core component, which is lanthanum. Lanthanum has been on the market, the drug based out of lanthanum has been on the market since 2004. So we were able to align with FDA to file an abbreviated regulatory pathway called 505(b)(2), which allows us to refer the attributes of the product to the approval that was done in 2004. We had to run certain studies which are currently running, and based on our understanding and FDA's feedback, this is the last clinical trial that we need to run before we can file our NDA. We have a 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway, but our drug itself is protected by multiple patents, but most importantly, we have composition of matter patent, which is considered to be one of the strongest patents in biotechnology industry. Our currently approved patent can give us exclusivity to 2031, and we have an opportunity to be able to extend them till 2035 based on patent term extension. The nanoparticle technology, as I mentioned, changes the size, but it also makes one more important improvement on the pill. The pill can be swallowed. Currently available binders have three main problems, which I'll walk you through as I show you a presentation, a deck that outlines the existing marketplace. But the three problems are there are a large number of pills that patients have to take. If they don't take large number of pills, they take a small number of pills. Those are large size pills. So the number one problem is the large number. Otherwise, you have a large size pills. And the third problem is that these large size pills have to be chewed, and these pills don't taste so good because they are actually based out of metal. And no matter what flavor you put on it, it's still at the end of the day, patients they still can taste the metal, whether it's iron or lanthanum, and that makes it really difficult for patients to swallow these pills and or to be able to take these pills. And time it's been shown there has been an impediment for patients to be able to continue taking these drugs for a long period of time. The class of drug is a pretty big market opportunity. So $2.5 billion treatment category throughout the world. 1.25 billion or so is in the US. And unfortunately, as we see more and more patients going on dialysis, there is a expected incidence of this disease, and potential patients who can benefit from this is expected to continue to grow. As I mentioned earlier, there are 400,000 patients in the US who are on some sort of phosphate treatment currently. Even so, one of the challenges is that 75% of existing patients who are on dialysis do not have serum phosphate control adequately maintained. Phosphate is something that is not a very trivial, just not a biochemical parameter. 1 milligram per deciliter increase in serum phosphate increases the risk of both mortality as well as hospitalization. Mortality is increased by, on average, 10 to 20%, but there is also increased risk of hospitalization, which becomes a really big burden for both the healthcare system as well as the cost of care. Both of these parameters are quite remarkable in the sense that you think about this, it's a very, very high mortality with a increased serum phosphate and morbidity. Therefore, physicians in nephrology are very, very familiar with it. They want to control serum phosphate as much as possible. And that is lies the next slide talks about the problem I shared with you earlier. Over the last decade, 75% of patient population has not achieved adequate phosphate control. And that begs the question, why? Here lies an answer or a clue to this answer. Patients who are on dialysis on an average are taking 20 to 30 pills per day. Mind you, these are not pills that they're taking for 1 day or 1 week or even a month. These patients are on these number of pills the rest of their life. Taking 20 to 30 pills per day means they're taking 10 to maybe 10 pills or so with each meal. 50% of these pills are attributed to hyperphosphatemia, meaning 15 to, if you think about it, 50% of 10 to 15 pills per day they are taking to control their serum phosphate. Let me show you one more slide. When we did a market research, which is a primary market research, we asked 100 US nephrologists unaided question, meaning they were not given any prompts or given a multiple choice questions. The number one problem that physicians identify in treatment of hyperphosphatemia is pill burden. So it is not just an intuitive perception that one could have, though if you are involved in taking care of your grandma, grandpa, or parents, or someone in your family, you realize that these patients, when you take care of them, they are already have enough other morbidities for them to be able to be compliant with these number of pills. It's just very, very hard. So pill burden is a very well-known market problem. And here is a slide that talks about the existing marketplace. If you look at it for left, Renvela, which is a market leader, Renvela, this slide shows you 9 pills per day the patients have to take. But on an average, most of these patients are not just taking 9 pills. Many of them are taking 12 pills, some of them up to 15 pills per day. That is 5 pills with each meal. Hyperphosphatemia treatment requires patient to take pills along with the meal. We are trying to control the managed dietary phosphate. So many of these pills are given along with the meal. So for Renvela, for example, patients have to take 5 pills. In this slide again, it is a daily average pill based on NIH guidelines or what we see in practice. So three pills with each meal. So 3 pills with breakfast, 3 pills with lunch, 3 pills with meal. So that's one option. It's a large number of pills, which I shared with you earlier. The other option, if you look at Valfora and Postanol, we say, well, those are small number of pills, and you'd be right. The challenge, which is a number 2 problem, is that if there are fewer pills, number of pills is fewer, these patients have to now take these pills. They are large pills. These are pretty big size pills. And you say, well, size really doesn't matter. If I were to take, I could take it. But this is not just the size of the pill. These pills have to be chewed. So these pills have to be chewed. These are a large size pills, and they taste really, really bad because Postanol has a taste of lanthanum and Valforo has a taste of iron. So no matter what flavoring we use, patients still have the taste of chewing metal. And right after their meal, most of them are not compliant. And that's what explains the 75% of hyperphosphatemia that has not been controlled, despite all these products in the market. What you will see here on the one on purple is our drug, which is an investigational drug. If approved, this drug allows you a chance to have patient take 1 pill with each meal. And this is 1,000 milligram pills. We're comparing apples to apples. We do have 3 different strengths of the pills. So there are 500 milligram pills, 750 milligram pills, and 1,000 milligram pills. So 1,000 milligram pills is what this is a bigger size pill. Our 500 milligram pill looks at the small size of the aspirin pill. So once approved by the FDA, this drug has the potential to be able to give patients an alternative that they can take just 1 pill, which they can swallow with each meal, and that allows them to be able to control their phosphate level. This market research, I'll skip the slide here. I'll refer you to read through it. The most important part is that we have an expected launch in mid-2025. Right around our launch, CMS is expected to bring in a new change in the regulatory reimbursement environment. It's called TDAPA, which I can discuss with you in Q&A session. TDAPA is a big word. I'll read one time just to illustrate it. It's transitional drug add-on payment adjustment. But think about this as a transitory period in which CMS will allow a new product to be on the market and get a full reimbursement from CMS. That lasts 2 to 3 years. And essentially after that, the binders are expected to go into bundle, which we can talk about at some other point. The last time a TDAPA designation happened in the past, which is a part on the right side, which you see two graphs, one in purple and one in green, it provided an opportunity for many patients to be able to get the drug, and also as a company, it gives us a chance to be able to generate value for our investors. But I will also say value for investors of type 2 patient access. CMS TDAPA designation allows many more patients to get the access. Currently, these drugs are part of Medicare Part D, as in David. During TDAPA period, they transfer from Medicare Part D, as in David, to Part B, as in boy. And the transition of Part B allows patients to be able to not have to worry about their reimbursement. And dialysis companies are also more interested in being able to fulfill the requirement. If a prescription is written by a physician for our drug, it gets fulfilled without having to worry too much about reimbursement. So that's the context there. Skipping through some of the clinical data, just very quickly going through the top line clinical data. This is a phase 1 clinical trial that was originally done. This drug went through a phase 1 trial, which showed that as you increase the dose of the drug, you expect to see what you would expect to see is to being able to control the phosphate level, which is what this drug did. These are healthy volunteers, so these are not patients. These are healthy volunteers that were given the drug, and it was evaluated for safety tolerability. It was very well tolerated. We ran the second trial, which was also in healthy volunteers, comparing our drug to the approved drug, which I showed you earlier in the slide, called phosphate, which is the oxylanthanum. When our drug was given to healthy volunteers and they were measured for their urinary phosphate excretion, it falls into the FDA's requirement of plus minus 20%. So FDA would allow you to get a 505(b)(2) designation. So for efficacy, when we ran the trial, we gave 32 subjects oxylanthanum carbonate, and these 32 subjects were given hyperphosphatemic diet, meaning they were given high phosphate diet. Over the course of 3 days, we monitored their urinary phosphate, and the same subjects were crossed over and they were given phosphonol, and we measured their urinary phosphate with phosphonol. And what we find is the urinary phosphate concentration in both these drugs are plus minus 20%. And that is what, so think about it as a goalpost. If you hit anywhere within the goalpost, you get a goal. And that goalpost from FDA's guidance is plus minus 20%. So we met this primary endpoint. It was in 2022. We went to FDA to meet with them, and in a form of a pre-NDA discussion mid last year, which is 2023. And FDA asked us to run this trial. It is a trial which is designed for looking for tolerability. This trial is not a fail-pass test, as in it's not designed to look for efficacy. It's not a test trial designed for comparing ourselves to, there is no comparator in that trial. There is no placebo arm. There is no comparator arm. This is a trial that is looking for tolerability up to 4 weeks of treatment. And this trial is currently being run. It's a US-based trial, 7 different clinical trial centers. It's available on clinicaltrials.gov. And we are on track to be able to get the top line data very quickly within this quarter. The currently available phosphate-lowering drugs, including the new drug, tenapanor, this is a package insert, so it is not what a clinical trial study will be done. It's a package insert which is very very well controlled, regulated by the FDA. If you look at the package insert, what you find that phosphonol, which is here colored in green, has one of the lowest adverse event profile, AE profile. Compare that to drug like Renvela, which is a pretty high number of AE profiles, as well as high incidence of AE profiles, adverse event profiles. So our label is expected to look similar to phosphonol, and we are running the study, the pivotal trial. That's what gives us a guidance in terms of what the label looks like. But the reason we provide this label as a comparison to show you that phosphonol, of all the available existing phosphate lowering agents, not just the binder, but the new drug tenapanor, has got one of the lowest adverse event profile. We talked about our patent position, so I'll skip that slide for a second. I'm going to take a pause here, just quickly giving you another few minutes of a second drug, and then Robert had mentioned to me earlier that he wanted to go through some Q&A. So the second drug is going through phase 1 clinical trial, which we talked about it. It is a drug that is based on an approved drug. The approved drug is Nicorandil. We've modified the property of Nicorandil. Nicorandil was originally approved in Europe, Japan, and Australia for treatment of angina. So it's a heart drug that works on heart condition. Angina is a condition where patients feel chest pain because they don't have enough oxygen. But Nicorandil has also properties pertaining to kidney. They have properties pertaining to effect on mitochondria that then affects kidney conditions, and it's got both preclinical as well as clinical data. So this is the drug which we are running currently in a phase 1 clinical trial. But I would just highlight the chronic kidney disease data. It's pretty compelling because it shows improvement in urinary excretion of urinary protein excretion, as well as albuminuria. And this is something which is better than anything else we have seen in terms of available data set. And we expect to be able to run this trial in the US in 2025, focus on phase 2 program after we get an alignment with FDA. Currently, we are going after a disease condition called delayed graft function. There are a number of patients in the US who get the donor graft that comes from a cadaver. So there are two types of grafts you can get. One is live donor, which is you get from a relative or a friend or someone who is willing to donate the kidney. But majority of the patients also get cadaver grafts. So 1/4 of those cadaver grafts, so that's 25% of those cadaver grafts, they suffer from DGF, which is stands for delayed graft function rejection. DGF is a disease that is mediated or attributed to ischemia, and Nicorandil has been shown to alleviate ischemia reperfusion injury, and that's the basis for a discussion with the FDA. That's how FDA allowed us to get through orphan disease designation. So again, this drug, our second drug, has got multiple patents, and we have some extended patents that granted they will cover until 2040. So this was just a quick overview. We have a team of individuals who have been there, done there before. The team has launched Renvela as well as Rixia. Those are two products in the market in the past. So we have an intimate knowledge for this category of products. And we also have a scientific advisory board that has got us what's very well known thought leaders, especially in the treatment of hyperphosphatemia, like Dr. Glenn Chittal, Dr. Pablo Ricola, Dr. Wolf, and Dr. Mehta. This is our fully diluted share count, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Robert ask any questions that he has.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gupta. That was a very interesting presentation, and you gave a lot of information very quickly. So, one of the things that always strikes me about the presentation is that these are patients who have had hypertension or diabetes for many years, and the phosphate binders are necessary as a secondary complication of these diseases that lead to the kidney failure. So that patients start out taking a lot of medications, and then adding phosphate binders, as you showed in the slides, adds a large number of pills. So it's understandable that they don't take their full dose and wind up not below the target range for phosphate control. And one of the slides that you presented showed hospitalizations, and would the improved compliance reduce the hospitalizations, and any estimates of the cost benefits of keeping patients in their desired phosphate ranges?
Right. You make a lot of very good points. So the first one, I'll just reflect very quickly in the interest of time. You're absolutely right. The patients who are going through dialysis, they're not just suffering from kidney problems. They are more or less patients who have had hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease, and many of these patients have also other problems like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. So on an average, these patients are taking multiple pills to begin with, and then you ask them to take a treatment for hyperphosphatemia. No wonder they don't take it.
Yeah.
One other the part of the issue is that if a patient has a clinical symptom, they will do something to manage their symptom. Hyperphosphatemia, we call it a silent killer. Like, hypertension, until a certain point, a patient has high blood pressure, they don't feel clinical symptoms. They have very high blood pressure, they obviously go into hypertensive crisis, and we manage that differently. But hyperphosphatemia, if somebody has 2 milligram per deciliter increase in serum phosphate, they don't feel chest pain, they don't feel abdominal pain, so they just don't take these pills. And there lies the problem. If we control their hyperphosphatemia, as you asked earlier, it has been shown that they are able to manage their dialysis better. And majority of patients who have chronic kidney disease, they are on dialysis, they don't die from kidney problem, they die from cardiovascular problem.
Yes.
So hyperphosphatemia causes coronary calcification. In other words, in more simplistic words, if a patient has a high phosphate, they end up in having their coronary arteries becoming like lead pipe. If they're not able to pump the blood, the heart doesn't get blood, the rest of the body doesn't get blood, and they end up in having heart attacks. So that's the side effect of hyperphosphatemia. That's number one. And the second part is that phosphate combines with calcium and ends up in being really rigid plaque, like they're low plaque. They can get deposited into soft tissue, and patients have bony deposits, and these bony deposits are really painful. So that's the second problem. So these are the two consequences of hyperphosphatemia, and that is what we are trying to prevent.
Yeah, like you said, a patient won't know that their phosphate is high if they're not compliant, but down the road,
Right.
they'll have other secondary complications and wind up in the hospital or even having cardiovascular events that kill them. So
That's right. Yeah.
it's better for the patient's health and more cost effective to do that. And as you mentioned,
right.
the market, just the number of patients that are on dialysis now is expected to increase. So this is
That's
a
right.
market.
Right. And one, yeah, please go ahead.
No, just finish your thought.
No, I think another part is that there are treatments options available, but by bringing these treatment options, our drug on the market, we are able to lower the cost of treatment, create better compliance. So it's a win-win for everybody. Insurance companies are focused on lowering the cost. Nobody wants to see patients going through the hospitalization, because each day of hospitalization costs thousands and thousands of dollars to the healthcare system. So we are all very aware of that problem. So I think it's something which we feel very passionate about, is to being able to bring the drug to market, lower the cost of treatment for the society at large, and also give them a better chance. Because when patients go through hospitalization, they have a exacerbated length of stay, and they have complications. They have infections, other challenges that are part and parcel of any hospitalization.
Yeah, this is a lesser known but very critical part of their care. And one of the other things that you touched on was the reimbursement. And I don't think anyone alive can explain a federal reimbursement program in under 30 minutes, but I think you touched on some of the important points about the way the treatment is changing from one classification to another, from Part D to Part B, and it's being included in a bundled payment, which simply put encourages doctors to try new treatments with better reimbursement for new therapies, and also encourages gradual shifting to more cost-effective practices, and guides the clinical practice of renal medicine. So you have two things working in your favor on the reimbursement side. Not only the reimbursement in dollars from Medicare, but also the practices and the trends that Medicare encourages to go to more efficient practices, better compliance, and using new drugs that have, like you said, better for the patients, better for the doctors, and better for the insurance companies. So
Right.
everything is working in your favor. Now, just my last question would be, could you just go over some of the milestones to look forward to between now and when the drug reaches the market?
Number one is top-line data. This gives you clarity. It's an open-label study, but we still can provide you top-line data. So that's a very quick, like as in a few weeks. Number two, I'm talking about the key milestone. Number two is getting a NDA filed. That's number two, which we can file shortly after top-line data. Number three is FDA accepting the NDA, which is when FDA gives you a PDUFA date. They say this is the date we'll give you an approval or give you a decision on approval. And the second part is that before the end of the year, we also expect to be able to provide the top-line data from phase 1 clinical trial on the second drug. So there are a lot of milestones happening. We continue to present our papers in different journals and different medical conferences. We have an upcoming conference, which is the European Renal Association, which is next month. So we'll be providing a lot of data in that too, and we'll provide the data both in terms of presentations and right after that in the form of press releases.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. This has been a really interesting presentation. We'll be looking for those milestones.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the
Thank
opportunity.
everyone for joining us.
Thank you.